Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to code a variation of rock, paper, scissors, and this is based on the rock, paper, scissors game featured in Squid Game Season 2. So if you haven't seen the show yet, this is just a small spoiler because this is one of the games that appears in the show, but basically it's rock, paper, scissors -1. So it's the same as rock, paper, scissors except you use two hands. So here I will select two options. So let's do rock and scissors. And you can see the opponent and I have two hands selected. And after you have your two options selected, you take a look at what your opponent has and you decide which hand you want to keep and which hand you want to take out. So that's what the -1 means. So in this case, my opponent has two scissors and I have a rock and a scissors. So if I choose scissors, we're going to get a tie. And if I choose rock, I'm guaranteed to win. So in this case, it doesn't make sense to choose the same thing for both of your hands because it's like having only one option. So in this case, I would choose rock. And you can see I win. And next round, I'll choose rock and paper. In this case, if I choose rock, my opponent might choose scissors or rock. And if my opponent chooses rock, then we get a tie. Whereas if my opponent chooses scissors, then I win. And if I were to choose paper, then if my opponent chooses rock, I win. But if my opponent chooses scissors, I lose. So if I choose rock, I either get a tie or win. And if I choose paper, I get a win or lose. So it makes sense for me to choose rock. Alright, so that's pretty much how this game works, and yeah, let's start coding it. And for this game, because it's a game from Squid Game, I decided to use a color theme that is used in Squid Game, so mostly black, white, and pink. And very quickly, I just want to mention that I'm working on various tutorials on my channel. So if you go on kennyupcoding.com, you can find the list of tutorials that are available on my YouTube channel. And you can jump to HTML, CSS, JavaScript games. And we have a ton of games on my channel. So I have Doodle Jump, Breakout, Flappy Bird, and I'll have Pac-Man soon. And if you scroll down, there are many other games such as 2048, Minesweeper, Candy Crush, and so on. And I have games in other programming languages such as Python and Java. So if you want to stay up to date for more game tutorials, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And again, you can find the list of tutorials on kennyupcoding.com. Alright, so let's begin. First, you want to create three files: index.html, style.css, and script.js. And after that, what you need to do is click the GitHub link in the video description. There you will find the completed code for this project as well as the images that we will be using. So just download the files and you can see we have rock, paper, scissors, and we have this image file that is empty. So this is a transparent PNG file, and this is going to be a placeholder for when neither rock, paper, or scissors have been selected. And the reason why I have this placeholder is because if you have an image tag without an image source, then you're going to get that file not found icon instead of an image. So we don't want that icon, so that's why we use a transparent image as a placeholder. So once you downloaded the files, just take these 4 images and place them into your project folder. Alright, so I have my 4 images here. Okay, so let's start. Here I'm going to just generate the boilerplate code. So HTML:5. And there you go. Let's format this a bit. And for the title, I'm just going to call this rock, paper, scissors. So for the body setup, I want to display the opponent's score, followed by the opponent choices, then your choices, and then your score. So I'm going to do h1 and set an ID of opponent score. And by default, let's make it 0. And let's create a div. ID is going to be choice selected. And within here, we're going to put the 2 hands for your opponent and your 2 hands. So we're going to do 4 images. So image ID is equal to opponent choice 0. And for now, let's just make the source rock.png. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to make this opponent choice 1. And let's put a BR tag. So this is going to add some spacing between your opponent choices and your choices. And then let's add another image tag for you. So ID is going to be your choice 0. Source, let's make it rock.png. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And let's change this to your choice 1. Next, let's add another div. And let's give it an ID, choices. So these are going to be the buttons that you click for rock, paper, or scissors. In this case, I'm going to populate these buttons using JavaScript. So within our HTML file, I'm not going to do anything. So let's just close this up and let's add another header tag. and this time it's going to be your score, 0. And finally, let's add a little instruction text. So it's going to be a paragraph tag with an ID, instruction, and we're going to do rock, paper, scissors. So after you choose your 2 hands, this is going to change to be -1. Now, if I open up our folder and I double click on the index.html file, you can see this is what we have so far. So your opponent's score, and we have the 4 choices. So your opponent's 2 choices and your 2 choices, and we have your score, and we have the instructions. Now let's add some styling. So let's go to our CSS file, and I'm going to style the body. So font family is going to be Arial. And then let's do text align center. So this is going to center all the text and images on a web page. Let's do background color. And I'm going to make it a black color, but I don't want it to be exactly black. So I'm going to make it a little lighter. So RGB 30, 30, 30. And then color, this is going to be the text color. So let's do pale violet red. So this is basically a pinkish color. All right, so now if I refresh the page, it seems like nothing has changed, so that is because we did not link our style sheet to our HTML file. So let's go do that. So here I'm going to do link rel is going to be style sheet, and href is going to be style.css. And while we're at it, let's also link our JavaScript file. So script source is going to be script.js. All right, now let's refresh the page. And you can see the text and images are centered, and the text is pink and the background color is black. Now let's add some styling for these images to make them smaller. So we have 4 images, and they are all inside this div tag with the ID choice selected. So what I can do is I can apply a style to all the image tags within this div tag ID choice selected. And actually I realized I spelled this wrong, so this should be selected with a C, so make sure you have it spelled correctly. So here, to style a specific ID, you would do hash choice selected, and in this case, I don't want the div tag itself, I want all the images inside the div tag. So this is going to apply the style to all the image tags within choice selected. So let's make the width 180 pixels. Height will also be 180 pixels. And let's do margin top 10 pixels. And I want to add a border. So border is going to be 1 pixel solid. And let's make it a black color, but slightly lighter. So 60, 60, 60. All right, now let's refresh the page. And you can see we have a border around each image, and the width and height of each image are 180 pixels by 180 pixels. Now the next thing I'm going to do is get rid of these placeholder images. So let's just change it to the empty transparent image. So here I'm going to make it empty.png, and let's just copy and paste it over here. All right, now let's refresh the page, and you can see we have 4 empty squares. So that's why I added the border, so that you can see where the rock, paper, scissors choices would go. Now let's add the rock, paper, scissors button options for the player. And for the opponent, we'll have each hand be selected at random. All right, so let's go to our JavaScript file, and let's define a few variables. So your score is going to be 0. And opponent score is going to be 0, and you and opponent. So you and opponent will refer to the final choice after -1. So it's going to be either rock, paper, or scissors. So for now, you and your opponent is going to be null. And let's list out the choices. So we have rock, paper, and scissors. And since this is rock, paper, scissors -1, we have 2 hands. So I'm going to do let your choice 0, your choice 1, opponent choice 0, and opponent choice 1. And let's also get the instruction. So these 5 variables are going to reference the tags with the same ID. So we have opponent choice 0, opponent choice 1, your choice 0, and your choice 1, and we have instruction. So we're going to reference each element tag based on their ID through these variables. But first, I want to populate the buttons for the user. So I'm going to do window.onload is equal to function. So basically, this function will be called when your page loads, And I'm going to do for let I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. We're going to loop through the choices. So let's choice equal to document dot create element image. So we're going to use JavaScript to create an image tag. So basically it's going to do image like so, and we can add some attributes to this image. So I would do choice.id equal to choices at index I. And this is going to be used for keeping track of which button was clicked. So if I click on the image with the rock symbol, then we're going to get the ID, which is rock. And let's add an image source. So choice.source is equal to choices of I. So in this case, it's rock, paper, scissors. We need to add the file extension, and the file extension is PNG for these images. So I'm going to do choices at index I plus .png. Then I'm going to do document dot get element by ID choices. So this is the div over here, choices. So I'm going to get this div tag and populate each image tag inside this div tag. So document dot get element by ID choices dot append choice. Okay. So we're going to create each tag for each of the rock, paper, scissors choices. And so the first line is going to create an image tag. And then the second line is going to do ID is equal to, let's say, rock. And then we're going to add a source, which will be rock.png. So we're repeating this 3 times for rock, paper, scissors. All right, now if I refresh the page, you can see we have our 3 options. And the images are very big, so we're going to add some styling for each of these choices. So I'm going to style the choices div tag. So choices, width is going to be 240 pixels. Height is going to be 80 pixels. So it's going to be a rectangular boundary. And I'm going to do margin 0 auto and margin top 10 pixels. And I want to style the images within the choices div tag. So we're going to do choices image. And we'll set the width to 80 pixels and height to 80 pixels. So the reason why I made the div tag to 40 pixels is because the width is going to be 80 times 3. All right, let's refresh the page. And you can see we have our 3 choices here. And if I click on them, nothing happens. So let's add a click handler. So to add a click handler, we're going to do choice.add event listener. And we're going to listen for a click. And if we click on this image tag, we're going to call a function. So let's call select choice. And let's define that function down here. So select choice. And we're going to have the user click on the choices twice. And the thing here is we don't want the user to click more than 2 times. So we're going to make a check. If your choice 0.source.includes, so source is the image file name. So if this includes empty, that means we have nothing yet. And this is a very hacky way to do it, but it works. And if you want to do it another way after this tutorial, feel free to do so. But for now, I would just rely on the image names. So here I'm going to do your choice 0.source is equal to this.id plus .png. So this refers to the specific image tag that was clicked on. So that's why we saved the ID earlier, because this would give us rock, paper, or scissors. And then here I'll do else. So if your choice 0 is not empty, that means we already have one hand selected. I'm going to apply this select choice to the second hand. So your choice 1 is equal to this.id plus .png. All right, now let's refresh the page. And if I select rock, let's right click inspect console, cannot read properties of undefined source. Okay. And this is a common mistake. Basically, we are referencing your choice 0 before assigning it. So your choice 0 is just a variable set to null. What we need to do is we need to assign these 5 variables to these image tags and this paragraph tag. So in our window.onload function, I'm going to do your choice 0 is equal to document.getElement by ID your choice 0. So this is why we assigned IDs to all of our tags earlier. Now I'm just going to copy and paste this. and change this to your choice 1. And let's do the same for opponent choice. So opponent choice 0 is equal to document dot get element by ID opponent choice 0. And let's copy and paste this and change this to 1 and the ID to 1. And let's get the instruction as well. So document dot get element by ID instruction. All right, let's refresh the page and I select rock and then paper. Nothing happens. Oof, I have a lot of bugs today. That's not a good start for the new year. Okay, so we have your choice 1. It should be your choice 1 dot source, because we are updating the image tag source and not the variable for the tag itself. All right, let's refresh the page. Rock, paper. Cool. Now if I press another button, scissors, it's going to change the second hand. And that is because of our if-else statement. Basically, our if-else statement only checks the first hand. So what we need to do is we need to hide the choices after 2 have been selected. So here I'm going to do document.get element by ID choices.hidden and set it to true. So this is going to hide our div tag for choices. All right, now let's refresh the page. Rock and paper, and now the choices are hidden. All right, now let's have the opponent randomly select 2 hands. For let I is equal to 0, I is less than 2, I plus plus. Let opponent choice equal to choices at index of, so we need to randomly select 0, 1, or 2. So we need to randomly select one of the choices. And to do so, I'm going to use the random function. So we'll do math.floor of math.random times 3. So basically what this does is math.random returns a number between 0 and 1, but it does not include 1. So it's going to be 0.99999 and so on. And we multiply this range by 3. So that will give us a number between 0 and 2.99999. And now we need to round down. So that's what we do with math.floor. So math.floor just rounds downwards. So basically it gets rid of the decimal place. So we're left with a number between 0 and 2. Okay, so that's how this works. And now I'm going to do document.get element by ID. And I'm going to use the backtick so that I can inject a variable value inside of a string. So opponent choice, so this is 0 or 1. So what I can do is $ and curly braces, and I'll pass in I. So I is going to be 0 and 1. So that's why I named the IDs opponent choice 0 and 1. It just makes it easier. So I'm going to get the image tag and set the source to be opponent choice plus .png. All right, so this is going to happen immediately after you select your second hand. Now if I refresh the page, I select rock and paper, you can see I cannot select any more choices and we have rock for both hands for the opponent. So now what we need to do is add an event listener for -1. So basically now I need to take one hand. So I need to click on one of these. And before I implement the logic, I just want to update the instruction. So instruction.innerText is equal to -1. Now let's refresh the page. I'll select rock and scissors and we have -1. All right, so let's add some click handlers for these 2 images. And we only want to click on our hand. So in our onload function, I'm going to do your choice 0 dot add event listener. We're going to listen for a click. And if we click on this image tag, we call a function -1. And let's copy and paste this and change this to your choice 1. Now let's define this function. So down here, I'm going to do function -1 if, and in this case, I want to only allow this function to be called if the user has 2 choices selected. Because if I don't make this check, the user can still click on the 2 hands even if they have an empty image. So we're going to make a check if not your choice 0 dot source that includes empty and not your choice 1 dot source that includes empty. And the reason why I don't directly check to see if it's equal to empty.png is because once you assign an image for the source is going to be updated to include the path to that image. And in a later bit, I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to have these two checks as well as and not you and not opponent. So the first two checks, make sure that you have two hands selected. And the second two checks, make sure that you have not already selected one hand for -1. All right, so for -1, we're going to make a check. If this, so this refers to the image tag that was clicked on. If this is equal to your choice 0, we're going to hide the other hand. So your choice 1.hidden is equal to true. Else, we're going to do your choice 0.hidden is equal to true. All right, now let's refresh the page. I choose paper and rock, and I would choose paper. So you can see one of my hands is now hidden. So this is my final hand after -1. Now let's apply this to the opponent. And for the opponent, I'm just going to make the hand be selected randomly. After this tutorial, you can change the logic so that the opponent will always go for the winning hand. But for now, I'm just going to make it random. So I need a random number between 0 and 1. So I'm going to do let n is equal to math.floor math.random times 2. And then let's create a variable opponent choice. So if n is equal to 0, that's the first hand, we'll do opponent choice equal to opponent choice 0. And we will hide the other hand. So opponent choice 1.hidden is true. Else, we do the opposite. So I'm going to copy and paste this and change this to opponent choice 1, and the hand that is hidden is going to be opponent choice 0. All right, let's refresh the page. I'll choose rock and scissors and -1, so I'll choose rock and the opponent chooses scissors. All right, so the -1 function works, and now we need to update our score. So now what we need to do is assign the final value to the variables you and opponent. And before I do that, I just want to show you, if I do console.log this.source and console.log opponent choice.source, let's see what we get. All right, let's refresh the page. I'm going to do rock, paper, and I'll select rock, and I'm going to right click inspect. And in the console, you can see the source path is actually more than just rock.png. We get the folder name, and the folder is inside desktop, which is on this user machine, and the same for scissors. So this is complicated because what I want to do is I want to check the source name to see if we have rock, paper, scissors. And that's why I use the includes function. Now the problem with this is the folder name is called rock, paper, scissors. So you see the issue here. Basically, if the source includes rock, this is going to be true. And it will be the same if I try to do if the source includes paper or scissors. And that is because of the folder name that appears in the source. So what I need to do is I will need to create a function that will extract just this portion. So just the file name. And the way I can do this is I can just split it based on this slash, which will give us an array. And then I will get the last string after that slash. So this is not the best way to do it, but it works, and I definitely encourage you to figure out an alternative solution after this tutorial. All right, so let's get rid of this. And down here, I'm going to create another function, getImageName, and it's going to take an image tag. So we're going to split the source string, so image source array is going to be image.source.split. And we're going to split by the backslash. And then we're going to return image source array. We want to get the last string, which is the file name. So image source array dot length -1. All right, let's assign the final value. And before I do so, let's just add a print statement so you can see what's happening. Okay, so here I'm going to use a for loop. So for let I is equal to 0. I less than 3, I plus plus. So this is going to be iterating through the choices. And actually, I can just make this choices.length. So if get image name of this, so we're passing in this image tag, dot includes choices of I, you, is equal to choices of I. And let's just copy and paste this and do it for the opponent. So get image name of opponent's choice. So if this includes choices of I, then we're going to set opponent to choices of I. All right, let's refresh the page. I'll choose rock, paper, and then -1, I'll choose paper. Now let's right click, inspect, console, and you can see we have a bunch of arrays here. So if I click on the most recent one, we have file, and then C drive, users, Lenovo, and at the very end we have paper.png. So this is an array that is created after we split the source string. And so we want the last string, which is the file name. So I'm going to get rid of this. So we have our two values, and just to make sure, I'm going to do console.log u and console.log opponent. All right, so let's refresh the page. So rock, paper, -1, I'll choose rock. Okay, right click, inspect, console. We have rock and scissors. Perfect. So now let's write the logic for checking the winner and updating the score. So here I'm going to make a call for check winner, and we'll call this function at the very end of -1. So let's define that here. And the first thing we want to make sure is we don't get a tie. So if we get a tie, nobody wins, so we go again. So here I'm just going to do if u is not equal to opponent, then we can make a check and update the scores. So here is going to be a little repetitive. So if u is equal to rock, if opponent is equal to scissors, rock beats scissors, so that means you win, so your score plus equal 1. Else, if opponent is equal to paper, opponent's score plus equal 1. And now let's just copy and paste this for the other two scenarios. So okay, so I'm going to change the second one. Else if you paper, so paper beats rock and loses to scissors. And for the final one, else, we're going to do if you select scissors, scissors beats paper and loses to rock. Okay, so that's all we need for the check. And now let's update the score. So I'm going to do document.getElementByD. Your score .inner text is going to be your score. And document.getElementByD. Opponent's score .inner text is equal to opponent's score. All right, let's refresh the page. I'll go rock, paper, and I'll choose paper. And you can see the opponent wins this one because scissors beats paper. So the opponent has one over here, and I want to play again. So let's write a function that would reset the game after the score is calculated. In this case, I want to wait a little bit before the game resets so that I can see the results on the screen. So I'm going to do setTimeout, and I'm going to call a function called clearChoices. And I'll pass in a number, which is in milliseconds, so 3000. So this is 3000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds. So this is the delay. So basically, I'm going to call this function after 3 seconds have passed. So let's define that function. So resetting a game is very simple. All you have to do is reset the conditions back to the starting conditions. So u would be null, opponent would be null, and we need to set all the images back to empty. So opponent choice 0.source is going to be empty.png. Let's copy and paste this. Change this to opponent choice 1, and let's do the same for your choice. Let's copy and paste this. Change this to your choice 1. Okay, so we have the images cleared. Now we need to unhide all the images because remember, we set some to hidden based on the hand selected. So we're going to do opponent choice 0.hidden and set it to false. Copy and paste this and change this to 1. And then your choice 0.hidden false. Let's copy and paste this. Change this to 1. And we need to enable the choices again. So document.getElementById choices.hidden is equal to false. And instruction, let's update it to be rock, paper, scissors. Now let's refresh the page. I'll do rock and paper. And in this case, if I choose rock, then I'm safe because I'll either get a tie or a win. So I'll choose rock. Okay, we get a tie. Wait 3 seconds. Reset. Okay, rock, scissors. Okay, so I'm guaranteed to win. So I'll just choose rock. I have 1 point. And reset. Rock, paper. I'll choose paper. And I have another point. And let's do scissors and paper. And I'll just do paper. And you can see the opponent gets that point. Alright, so we have a fully functional game of rock, paper, scissors -1. And I definitely encourage you to continue working on this after the tutorial. Some things you can include is updating the instruction text to show who won, so you win or the opponent wins. And you can also add a timer, just like in the show, where you only get maybe 3 seconds to decide. You can also add a feature where first to 5 points wins the entire game and reset the scores back to 0. This is all up to you. I definitely encourage you to continue working on this game if you want. But yeah, that's it for this tutorial. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And if you want to stay up to date for more tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.